When you think of ancient civilizations, what comes to mind? Perhaps the pharaohs of Egypt, who built the pyramids nearly 5,000 years ago. Or maybe the cradle of civilization in the Middle East, dating back around 10,000 years. But what if I told you there is a culture whose history stretches even further, over 60,000 years, and that it is still alive today? We're talking about the Indigenous Australians, also known as Aboriginal or First Nations people. Welcome to Nomad's Echoes, where forgotten stories, ancient traditions, and hidden mysteries come to light. Today we follow those echoes, and our journey begins in the heart of Australia. Not as tourists, but as curious souls seeking connection. Australia is more than kangaroos, koalas, and barbecues. It's a land of contrasts, warmth, chaos, silence, and stars. Its people come from everywhere, yet something ties them all together. And beyond the cities lies the outback, vast, still, unforgettable. At the center of it all are the First Nations peoples, whose bond with the land runs deeper than time itself. This is where our journey begins. Let's listen, learn, and explore. Before British colonization, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples had lived on this land for over 65,000 years. Their connection to country, to the land, water, sky, and all living things, is not just spiritual. It's practical, scientific, and deeply cultural. They navigated by the stars, managed the land with fire, passed down knowledge through songlines and stories. In 1770, Captain James Cook landed on the east coast and claimed the land for Britain. 18 years later, the first fleet arrived, bringing convicts to what is now Sydney. To the British, this was terra nullius, nobody's land. But this was far from the truth. The land was already home to hundreds of indigenous nations, each with their own language, laws, and territories. The British arrival was not a peaceful settlement. It marked the beginning of a brutal invasion. Land was stolen, sacred sites destroyed, and entire communities displaced. Diseases brought by Europeans devastated indigenous populations. Over the following decades, policies of forced assimilation, such as the removal of indigenous children known as the Stolen Generations, inflicted lasting trauma. Yet despite this painful history, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have shown extraordinary resilience. Their cultures continue to thrive, and today more Australians are working to acknowledge the truth of the past and take steps toward reconciliation. Learning about Indigenous culture is not just about history. It's about understanding the present and imagining a more respectful future. And we arrive at today's goal: the exploration of the sacred lands of the Aboriginal people. For thousands of years, Aboriginal peoples have regarded certain places as sacred, spaces where history and spirituality are deeply intertwined. These sites, said to bear the marks of their ancestors, reflect a connection to the land that runs deeper than geography. However, these sacred places have also faced challenges: controversy, secrecy, and conflict, especially following European settlement. To truly grasp their significance, we must first understand the concept of dream time. In Aboriginal cosmology, dream time refers to the era when ancestral beings created the world, shaping mountains, rivers, animals, and rock formations, each imbued with spiritual meaning. Every landscape holds the echoes of these sacred stories. For Aboriginal Australians, the land is not just a resource. It is a living entity, filled with soul and memory. It is not something to be owned, conquered, or exploited. Instead, it holds deep connections to the past, to the ancestors who shaped it, and to the future generations who will continue to protect it. Rituals, dances, and rock paintings do more than just tell stories. They are bridges, linking the present to the mythical past and ensuring that the wisdom of ancient traditions never fades. One of the most powerful examples of this sacred connection between people and land is Uluru. Uluru rises from the desert like a sleeping giant, its deep red surface shifting color as the sun moves across the sky. For over 30,000 years, this monumental rock has stood at the heart of Anangu culture. To outsiders, it may seem like just a spectacular geological formation, but to the traditional owners, every curve, every scar on its surface holds meaning. They're not random marks, they're stories. Stories of creation, of battles, of ancestors whose spirits still live within the stone. One side tells of venomous snakes clashing with sand pythons. Another preserves the tragedy of the Mala people attacked mid-ceremony. And then there's the story of Kunia, the Woma python woman who struck down her enemies to protect her nephew, her spiritual blow still etched into the surface of the rock. These are not just tales. They are part of Chukorpa, the sacred law that shapes the Anangu worldview. Often misrepresented as dream time, Chukorpa is not a relic of the past. It's a living system, still guiding moral and cultural life today. Despite its spiritual gravity, Uluru was long treated by tourists as a challenge to be conquered. For decades, they climbed it, ignoring repeated pleas from Aboriginal custodians to stay off the rock. To many visitors, it was just another photo opportunity, an adventure. But in 2019, that changed. The climb was finally banned, marking a long overdue moment of recognition and respect. Yet, the true essence of Uluru lies deeper than its slopes. Certain areas around the monolith are restricted, places reserved for specific ceremonial purposes. One of the most sacred is the Women's Cave, a site accessible only to initiated Aboriginal women. It's believed to be a place of learning, of birth, of ritual power. Even many Aboriginal men avoid it, out of reverence and fear. Outsiders are not just discouraged, they're forbidden. To enter, or even to speak of the teachings held within, is to violate ancient laws. Still, the power of Uluru has drawn more than just respectful visitors. In recent years, new myths have emerged, ones not rooted in indigenous tradition. One of the most talked about is the so-called Uluru prophecy, a New Age belief that claims a hidden magic box beneath the rock holds an ancient energy capable of healing the earth. Though popular among esoteric circles, this idea has no basis in Anangu lore. And yet, it reflects something deeper, the magnetic pull of this place. The sense that something more is happening here, just out of reach. Other warnings, however, come directly from the Anangu people. For generations, they've told of the bad luck that follows those who disrespect the land. Tourists who pocketed stones from the site have often reported misfortune, accidents, illness, financial ruin. Some even mail the rocks back in desperation, hoping to lift the curse. Whether coincidence or consequence, these stories speak to the same truth. Uluru is not just a landmark. It is a presence, a spirit, a keeper of memory. In this collision of ancient spirituality and modern curiosity, Uluru endures. Stories may evolve, myths may mutate, but the sacredness of the rock remains. It demands respect, and for those who truly listen, it still speaks. Kata Tjuta, the secret men's business. Uluru holds many secrets, but it is not alone. Not far from Uluru, another sacred site stands in quiet defiance of time. Tjuta, a name that means many heads in the Pitjantjatjara language, rises from the desert like a slumbering giant, its ochre-colored domes clustered together as if in council. To the untrained eye, it might look like just another setting geological feature. But to those who know, or rather, to those allowed to know, Tjuta is even more sacred than Uluru. Where Uluru welcomes stories, shared, some, and sometimes softly revealed, Tjuta remains mostly silent. Here, knowledge is hidden behind layers of ritual, secrecy, and initiation. Many of its stories are never spoken outside of ceremony. Large sections of the site are strictly off-limits, not just to the public, but even to Aboriginal women and uninitiated men. What happens within those domes is part of the sacred men's business, a phrase that holds far more weight than it might suggest. It signifies teachings, rites of passage, and ancient wisdoms that are fiercely protected. While Uluru's stories are painted across its surface, Tjuta keeps its truths buried deep. Some say the formations hum with a strange energy. Hikers along the Valley of the Winds Trail have reported odd sensations, shifts in temperature, moments of sudden disorientation, and even the eerie feeling of being watched. Though dismissed by some as desert mirages or tricks of the wind, these experiences persist in whispered stories. One local tale speaks of a hidden cave somewhere between the domes, an opening that appears only to those who are ready to receive its knowledge. Others believe the rocks themselves are guardians, ancient beings frozen in stone, silently watching over sacred law. And then there's the rumor, shared only in hushed tones, that deep within Tjuta lies a place where the dreaming is still active, not remembered, not retold, but alive. Scientists have long studied the unique magnetic anomalies in the area, noting compass deviations and strange electrical readings. But for the Unangu people, such phenomena only affirm what they've always known, that Tjuta is not a place to be understood with instruments or analysis. It is a place to be understood with instruments or analysis. It is a place to be respected and feared. Unlike the well-documented tales of Uluru, what makes Tjuta so enigmatic is not what we know, but what we're not allowed to know. It is a sacred space that resists explanation, a realm where silence speaks louder than words. In a world obsessed with uncovering every secret, Tjuta remains defiantly unknowable. Arnhem Land, restricted access and sacred knowledge. While Tjuta guards its sacred knowledge behind domes of silence, further to the north lies another cultural stronghold, one far more remote and mysterious. Then there's Arnhem Land, remote, wild, and unlike anywhere else. This vast stretch of untouched land, the size of Portugal, has been home to Aboriginal communities for tens of thousands of years. It is more than a place. It is a cultural fortress, a living archive where traditions remain strong and the past continues to guide the present. Yolngu song lines weave through the landscape, connecting generations to ancestry, while bark paintings tell stories as intricate and layered as any written text. One of Arnhem Land's most remarkable figures was Lori Baimarwanga, or Big Boss. Born around 1917, she grew up speaking Yangangu, a language nearly lost to time. But she refused to let it fade. She became a force of cultural revival, preserving language, law, and ecological knowledge. She helped establish a school that blended Yolngu and Western teachings, developed marine sanctuaries, and reconnected generations to their heritage. Named Senior Australian of the Year in 2012, her legend was already carved deep into the hearts of her people. Continuing our journey through Australia's sacred landscapes, we arrive at Lake Mungo, a place that at first glance appears as a desolate expanse. Yet, beneath its surface lies a profound narrative of human history. Over 40,000 years ago, this land was alive with people, Aboriginal communities who hunted, gathered, and shared stories under open skies. In 1968, the discovery of Mungo ladies' cremated remains revealed the world's oldest known cremation. A few years later, Mungo Man was unearthed, his body carefully buried with red ochre, a sacred pigment still used in rituals today. These discoveries rewrote what we thought we knew about early human societies. They showed us that spiritual beliefs, ceremonial burials, and a deep cultural connection to the land existed tens of thousands of years ago. But Lake Mungo's story doesn't end there. The removal of Mungo Man's remains without consent from Aboriginal communities raised serious questions about the treatment of ancestral remains. After decades of advocacy, his reburial in 2022 became a powerful moment of reflection, a reminder of the importance of respecting Indigenous heritage and the stories that shape our collective past. From Mungo's arid silence, we journey north to the lush expanse of Kakadu National Park, a land where stone meets sky and stories are etched into the rock. Home to the Beninj and Mungi peoples, Kakadu is a living archive of over 65,000 years of continuous culture. Its escarpments and rock shelters house more than 5,000 documented rock art sites, with some estimates suggesting up to 15,000 exist across the park. Among these, the Uber and Norlangi galleries stand out, showcasing intricate X-ray style paintings that depict not only animals in daily life, but also ancestral spirits and creation beings. One such spirit is the Mimi, ethereal beings believed to have taught the first humans how to paint and hunt. These figures are said to dwell in the cracks of the rocks, emerging at night to dance and sing, their presence a testament to the enduring connection between the people and the land. Yet Kakadu's significance extends beyond its art. Certain sites within the park are so sacred that their locations and stories are known only to a select few initiated elders. These areas are believed to be inhabited by powerful ancestral spirits and are approached with deep respect and caution. Visitors are often guided by Indigenous rangers who share the cultural protocols necessary to honor these sacred spaces. Further northeast, the Daintree Rainforest unfolds, a verdant realm where the eastern Kuku-Yalanji people have lived in harmony with nature for over 50,000 years. This ancient rainforest is not only a biodiversity hotspot, but also a tapestry of spiritual sights and stories. One such site is the Blue Hole Pool, a serene waterhole enveloped by dense foliage. Traditionally, this area is reserved for women's ceremonies, including birthing rituals. Men are prohibited from entering, and signs are posted to inform visitors of its cultural significance. Despite these measures, there have been instances where the sanctity of the site has been compromised, highlighting the ongoing challenges in preserving Indigenous heritage. The Daintree is also rich with Dreamtime stories. For instance, Windoo, Thornton Peak, is considered a sacred site, believed to be the home of ancestral spirits. These narratives are not merely tales, but are integral to the Kuku-Yalanji's understanding of the world, guiding their interactions with the environment and each other. Thoughtful. As we reflect on these sacred places, we must also confront the darker parts of Australia's recent history. The era of the stolen generations, from the late 1800s to the 1970s, saw countless Indigenous children forcibly taken from their families. Stripped of their language and culture, many grew up disconnected from their roots. Sad, the trauma of that time still echoes today. And yet, through all of this, Aboriginal Australians have shown extraordinary resilience. They continue to sing the songs, tell the stories, and walk the dreaming paths that have endured for millennia. Honoring this culture isn't just about remembering the past, it's about recognizing the strength of the world's oldest living civilization. Because for them, these aren't just places on a map, they're living ancestors, their spirit. This concludes our exploration of Australia's sacred sites and the rich tapestry of Aboriginal culture. Join us next time on Nomad's Echoes, where we uncover the stories that shape our world.